month in the Perimenopause Hub, we're talking about fatigue. In the survey that I've carried out recently, 68% of respondents came back saying that was their number one symptom that they are sick of. So I think it's one that really needs addressing. So today we're speaking to Claire and Susannah, both of whom are nutritionists. We will look at how we can tackle fatigue via nutrition and lifestyle changes like that. Just to give my personal experience on the fatigue thing, this is why I've realised I'm in perimenopause. This is my utter bugbear. So it's one I'm really passionate about. So I'm hoping these ladies can give us lots of help. Right, Claire, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, some of you know me and some of you won't know me. I am an integrative health coach, so I combine lots of different techniques and modalities to give a holistic approach to supporting somebody. So I originally trained as a physio many years ago, 20 years ago, and then I did a master's in health ergonomics, which was a psychology-based master's. So there was lots of kind of looking at how one system affects another system. It wasn't just purely, although it was health-based, it wasn't purely health-based. So I'm not going to digress into that. But anyway, I did lots of work with behaviour change models and trying to sort of facilitate people out of a feeling of helplessness towards a feeling of empowerment, and I use that quite a lot when I work with people. I then did a diploma in nutrition and then decided to do another diploma in nutrition, and so I'm now doing another course which is in medical intuition, which is basically all about how your thoughts and feelings can manifest themselves and contribute towards illnesses. So really my approach is very multifaceted when I work with somebody.
Who do you tend to find you work with? Do you have a specific demographic you work with?
Yeah, so mainly women. I would say most of my clients are women. A lot of my clients are people that have had symptoms for a long time and haven't found the answers or the help really to help them to improve. So a lot of my clients are people that have maybe been to the doctor or maybe gone and consulted one person, but that hasn't necessarily given them any relief or long-term help. So a lot of people with digestive issues, low energy, low mood, those are probably my main demographic at the moment. Yeah, hormone imbalance ties in with all of that. So,
and would it be fair to say that you work quite a lot with women who are pretty sporty?
I do have a lot of people that do a lot of exercise, yeah, as my clients. They're not all people that do a lot of exercise, but yeah, I think they do make up quite a big portion. Yeah.
Cool. Right, Susannah, over to you. Tell us about you.
So hi everyone, I'm Susannah Alexander. My business is Nutrition with Susannah, and I'm a registered nutritional therapist, which means that I completed an accredited qualification in nutritional therapy, in my case a degree. And when you do these qualifications, the model that we use in nutritional therapy nowadays is called functional medicine, and I'm sure Claire's very familiar with functional medicine. And what functional medicine says is, imagine you go to the doctor with a particular set of symptoms and they go, okay, you have this disease and we will treat you in this way. And the next person comes through and they go, you have the same disease, we will treat you in the same way. Whereas functional medicine says it's not about the disease, it's about you. So it's about saying, you know, two people may come to me with, broadly speaking, the same set of symptoms, but those symptoms can have come from two completely different places. And what's more, those two people can be from completely different cultural and social and emotional backgrounds, and therefore the approach to addressing those symptoms will be completely different. Absolutely. So we work with the principle of individuality. So that's how I work. It's all about personalised nutrition. Now, who do I work with? I find I work with a lot of health professionals, actually, people like nurses and physios. And I really like to work with those people because I'm kind of science-based and data-based. And I think people like that kind of understand that approach. And they understand the medical model and how to work with it. But they also understand that there's something a bit beyond that they can't get purely with the medical model, because doctors, bless them, do an amazing job, but they have very, very little time to work with us. You know, people who maybe have a little bit more time to listen can add value. It's not that we're trying to take away from what the medical world is trying to do. We think it's amazing. We're trying to add value to it. So I think I work with a lot of people like that. Strangely enough, I work with men a fair bit. I think maybe more than the average, because they also are quite technical and they like it when I give them data.
Yeah.
And something I'm moving into is working with plus size women like myself, for whom health rather than weight loss is the goal.
Love that.
Because it's not, you know, it's not that I'm anti people losing weight if that's what they want to do. What I'm anti is people punishing themselves to squeeze themselves into a hole that they don't belong in.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Right. Now we know who everyone is, let's have a bit of a discussion around just the whole fatigue thing. So, as I said briefly at the start, for me it's certainly been my biggest symptom since going through this wonderful phase of my life. And for the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I've really fought against it and refused to accept that the fatigue is there. It's been quite interesting over the last year seeing how an acceptance of it, and therefore a rejigging of life and looking at the diary as a whole week rather than cramming everything into one day, has helped me to manage it. I haven't increased my energy yet, sadly. I'm still waiting for that magic bullet. Managing it has given me a significantly easier way to deal with it. As I say, that's more from a planning point of view and from a, if anyone knows the spoons theory, from a sort of a spoons perspective of just chunking out my time and looking at it from an energy perspective, rather than specifically from a holistic or a nutritional or a functional medicine point of view. So I will now pass over to you two to tell us. I guess everybody's different, so I completely see that every person suffering with fatigue going through perimenopause is going to have different things going on. But I guess what we're looking for here is the basics that are worth bearing in mind. So whether that be that in your experience, processed foods, for example, are really unhelpful, I don't know. But so over to you two. Shall we start with Susannah this time? For just a few sort of hints and tips and things that nutritionally can help people to manage their fatigue and get back a bit of them, a bit of the old them.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say to people is, don't beat yourselves up. Don't be angry with your body for being tired. It's doing a lot. It's doing a lot to look after you. So be a bit kind to your body, and don't be angry that you can't run around like a 20-year-old. The thing is, you can run around like a 20-year-old. You just need to manage yourself a little bit better. And I think there are three main things. There are many, many things, but I think there are three things that we do need to keep an eye on a bit more as we get older. Number one is balancing blood sugar, which means having a steady flow of energy through the day rather than peaks and troughs. And what really helps with that is having fewer sugars, simple sugars, and certainly not having them on an empty stomach. So, for example, I always jump up and down because my mum eats just fresh fruit for breakfast. And there's nothing wrong with fresh fruit, but put some plain yogurt with it so you get a bit of protein as well, so that the sugars aren't whacking into your system and giving you an energy burst and then you get a crash. So it's, different diets for different people, but if you're somebody who's eating carbohydrates, make them complex, make them brown, and have them with a protein source and with a healthy fat source as well. Having that balance through the day is going to be very helpful. I think 80% of people I see have some kind of blood sugar issue, and that's across the board. It's not just menopause, it's everybody. So that's thing number one, is to look after your blood sugar and it will look after you. Thing number two is that as we get older, sometimes levels of stomach acid tend to change. And that can have an impact on the way we digest our food and the way that we absorb vitamins and minerals. So sometimes it can be as simple as, you're maybe not getting enough vitamin D, your iron levels are low. And those are the basic things we check first off. And many of those tests, vitamin D, iron, B12, you can get from your doctor. You don't even have to pay for them. And if your doctor's being funny about vitamin D because they're only allowed to test a certain amount of times now, you can get a test that is an NHS test. You buy it through the post. It's 23 quid or something. And you send it off, get it checked in a proper hospital, and you will know all about your vitamin D levels. Thing number 3, obviously this is a whistle-stop tour and there could be many other things, is take care of your liver, because your liver's been working hard through your life. And if you had a fun 20s or student years or whatever, and you were living it up, which, let's face it, we all do, your liver isn't as able to cope now. And the biggest single rising cause of being ill nowadays, many causes like heart attacks and diabetes, they're big, but they're sort of steady. They're not sort of booming in the age that we're talking about now. It's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and that always surprises people. And so it's really important that you're taking care of your liver, that you're avoiding the sort of classic refined sugars, processed foods, too much alcohol. You don't have to live like a nun or a monk, but you do have to just say, if I have a wild night of drinking, I'm really going to need to look after myself to balance that out, and preferably sort of not have too wild a night of drinking. And really think about having good quality proteins and green leafy vegetables and brassicas, which is broccoli and cauliflower. And if you're like me and you can't stand kale, find something else like pak choi or Chinese cabbage, which is, you don't have to eat things you don't like. There's always plenty of choice. To try and also things like turmeric are really good to try and support your liver and look after it so that you're not one of the silent victims out there.
Claire, what's your thoughts on fatigue from your point of view?
Yeah, I agree completely with Susannah. So I trained at ION. I don't know where you did your degree, Susannah, but the same sort of approach, functional medicine. So yeah, definitely blood sugar balance would be my first thing. So with that, it's really making sure, Susannah said, that you're eating the right kind of carbohydrate. So there's a big trend at the moment for people to eat low carbohydrate, and the other dietary trend at the moment is veganism. And I'm not at all being disparaging about being a vegan at all. I don't eat that much meat, but I do eat some. I'm not saying that everyone should eat meat, but it is a definite trend that we're seeing at the moment, that people are becoming more vegan, and that will probably change again in a year or 2 years' time. But sometimes when you're following a dietary trend such as low carbohydrates or veganism, that can mean that you're not always eating enough of each macronutrient to support your blood sugar balance. So that can mean that, for example, if you're a vegan and you're not really careful and you're not getting good quality sources of plant protein in your diet, that you can start to suffer with unbalanced blood sugar. If you are eating a low carbohydrate diet, that's not always as likely, but as women, particularly for our thyroid health, we do have a need for some carbohydrates in our diet. So that would be the other thing that I would err on the side of caution with is, different diets for different people, but we do all need to have balanced blood sugar, because that is a homeostatic mechanism. If it goes wrong, you're going to be tired, basically. And the typical pattern for that is around 3 p.m. or feeling, tired a couple of hours after you've eaten a big kind of sugary lunch or a lunch that's high in refined carbohydrates, white pasta, white rice, that kind of thing. So exactly as Susannah said with that. And I agree with everything that she said, actually. Surprisingly, no. And but I think don't underestimate the effect that falling estrogen will have. And there's certainly different foods that will help with that, and some that will exacerbate it. So we know that alcohol in large amounts even in small amounts, has an impact on estrogen balance. And so, if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, that might be impacting your hormone as well. So that's one of the things that I tend to look at with women that are having hormone issues, making sure that you're eating in the evening but not eating too late, and not eating something that's too sugary again at night time before you go to bed, because again that will contribute to unbalanced blood sugar. And in combination with falling estrogen, that can lead to sort of this insomnia and waking up at night and not having a very restful night's sleep, which will leave you feeling really tired the next day. You know, it's quite hard to give general advice for everyone, but as Susannah said, it's things like making sure that you are supporting your liver. So if you're drinking a lot of alcohol and eating a lot of processed foods that have got trans fats in, things like that, which are the fats that we really want to avoid, that's going to be putting a little bit of an extra strain on your liver and making it work a little bit harder as it tries to break all of those things down. When that happens, your liver maybe can't do quite as good a job at trying to sort of balance the hormones, because your liver does help to break down hormones from your body. All of these things interact, so there's not any one system that you would look at in isolation. And it's very common as well for women to develop thyroid problems when they start to come into the perimenopause. You know, that's the prime time for thyroid issues, particularly if you've got a genetic predisposition to them, or particularly if you're under a lot of stress as well. And don't forget that fluctuating sex hormones can be perceived as a stress on the body if they're fluctuating largely. So all of these things might interact to give you a feeling of fatigue. Definitely trying to sort of monitor your thyroid as well, making sure that that's where it should be is always a good idea if you're going to your doctor for the other tests Susannah recommended. And hydration is a big one for me as well, because I find that a lot of people don't actually drink very much at all. You know, water is great, but you don't have to just drink plain water. Quite often people will say to me, I don't like water, and so I'll say to them, well, put something in it, like put slices of lemon in it, or cucumber in it, or put some fresh, you know, sliced strawberries in it. Have some fizzy water, make some fizzy drinks. You can use fruit tea bags and make a fruit tea and make it concentrated, and then put fizzy water in that, so you feel like you're having a nice squash, but it's a nice fizzy kind of cold fruit tea with lots of ice in it, mint leaves and things. Because there's an awful lot of people that aren't very hydrated, and if you're dehydrated, that actually affects the way that your cells speak to one another. It affects the signaling in your body. It will also affect things like your detoxification and how well your body is getting rid of waste, and you know how often you go into the loo and things like that. So that can be a quite a biggie as well. So really important for energy is that you're well hydrated.
So I have one more question that just came to me as we were chatting there. I'm going to bow down to your greater knowledge. It's just something that I'm sort of skirting around, starting to understand. Phytoestrogens.
Yeah.
In food. Useful in perimenopause, or better when you're through menopause? And probably better if one of you wants to explain what they are before we jump in.
Oh my gosh, this is a minefield, this one.
Sorry.
So yeah, it is a really good question. So what phytoestrogens are, first of all, is that they're estrogens that are found in plants, and they're what we call adaptogens, which means that if an estrogen in the body would have a strong effect, then the phytoestrogen has a slightly weaker effect. If the estrogen in the body would have a weak effect, the phytoestrogen may have a slightly stronger effect. So they kind of adapt, and they can take the place of estrogen. So they can be, I think they can be useful, but what some people tend to do is kind of go a bit mad. And for example, you know, there's no word in Japanese for menopause.
Yeah.
And people think this is because the Japanese women eat a lot of soy, and therefore, you know, somehow soy works as an adaptogen, and it, you know, takes away from the kind of falling and rising estrogen levels we've got in the body, and they don't have problems. But the thing is, they've been eating soy all their life. So people go out and eat a load of soy and it doesn't suit them, because our bodies are not acclimatized to it. We haven't been doing that ever since we were children. So it's not going to have the same effect. So you need to look at the studies based around soy, for example, with a bit of caution. And you also need to bear in mind that the Japanese tend to be eating sort of either edamame beans or kind of fermented soy products. which are non-processed soy, whereas we go out and eat a block of tofu that was made in a factory, and we think it's going to do the same thing, and probably not.
Yeah.
So I think that from my point of view, there's no harm in having some phytoestrogens in the form as nature intended as part of a balanced diet. There's no evidence that sort of going mad and eating a load of tofu and a load of processed phytoestrogens is going to do you any good at all. And it may even be counterproductive for Western women because we're just not acclimatized.
So just to clarify on this, I'll go back to Claire now. Do you want to just give us a rough list of foods that would contain phytoestrogens? I know there's soy, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to add that it is really confusing, and I must say that it is a question that I get asked about all the time when somebody comes to me and they're either thinking about going on to HRT or they're on it and they want to come off it and they're not sure what to do because they've read about, all these different things that they can do naturally in these like different supplements that they can take and everything. I agree with Susannah 100% that actually a lot of the studies that have been done that show that soy could potentially be supportive, there's two problems with them. They're not long term, so we don't know what would happen if somebody ate soy every day for 2 or 3 years, because the studies aren't that long, and they have used natural soy, so it's either fermented or, as Susannah said, the beans. It's not tofu, and it's not, so that in itself is a processed food. Actually, there are some studies that suggest that some phytoestrogens, so you will find them in things like flax seeds. You will also find that brassica vegetables are advised or promoted quite a lot to help balance hormones, because they also contain, begins with a G. Can you say it, Susannah? I can never say it. Yes.
Oh,
you know what I mean, don't you? They contain something magic. They contain one of their natural plant chemicals, is something that can help us to basically help balance estrogen and balance hormones. We think that actually that they're okay. For the studies that I've read tend to say that actually advising women to include a portion of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli or cabbage or Brussels sprouts, watercress, that kind of thing into their diet every day is actually safe and is helpful. We don't know about flax seeds. We don't know about ground flax seeds either. Again, the studies out there are quite short and they're mixed. If you talk to oncologists, they will frequently tell women that are taking ground flax seeds to stop taking them if they've had breast cancer, for example. So I've got a couple of physio clients at the moment, and they've both had mastectomies. They were both told to stop taking ground flaxseed by different oncologists. So we just don't know is the answer. So the foods that they would be in, typically the ones that I would say to use for women that aren't perimenopausal and to use short term, because that's what the studies show, would be ground flax seeds and would be soy that is in its natural form. Those are the two that have been most researched. And then the other foods like the cruciferous vegetables, it's going to be quite hard to eat a dangerous amount of those, I would say, unless you're eating 10 portions a day. Which I don't
nothing but broccoli.
And some people have a little bit of a wobble around cruciferous vegetables, because Claire was talking about thyroid earlier. Stuff that went around saying, oh no, if you've got a thyroid problem, you mustn't eat cruciferous vegetables because they're goitrogens and they interfere with thyroid functions. The simple thing to do is steam them.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be eating loads and loads of raw broccoli. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a study that actually said we had X number of people eating a load of broccoli and their thyroids crashed. I don't think that's actually ever happened.
No.
But the point is that you can get around that by steaming them anyway, so not to worry.
Perfect.
The fatigue is to really cut out process, or reduce, if you can, processed foods, and try to swap them for more whole foods, and really to try and swap out your sugar for something that isn't going to have that same effect on your body.
by sugar, are you meaning all sugars, or sort of fruits and things are okay as long as they're balanced, as Susannah was saying at the start?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, all sugar has, all sugar like honey and maple syrup and cane sugar and molasses and all of that, they will all have an effect on your blood sugar. They're all sugars. Fruit obviously is a little bit different because you get the fibre with that, so the impact potentially, depending on who you speak to, is slightly different. Whether you do still have fructose in fruit, and that in itself works differently on the body. I think if you're eating small amounts and you're eating it sensibly, and you're not a fruitarian, because they do, people are fruitarians. I think that fruit personally is okay. If you've got blood sugar issues and it's obviously a little bit unbalanced, there's certain fruits that are going to be higher in sugar.
If you're like me and you're a bit unbalanced, then the sort of fruits I like to go for are berries and cherries and orchard fruits, and maybe stay away from the kind of tropical type fruits, even though they're delicious. And have the end of a meal, because then you've had your protein, you've had your healthy fats, and the amount of sugar in a few berries or a pear is not going to have a bad effect on you, because most of it's being processed differently anyway, because it's fructose. And and again, people have a stress about fructose, because yes, fructose will ruin your liver, but it will be the type that will is high fructose corn syrup, which is in processed foods. It's not, the little bit of fructose that's in a little bowl of strawberries is not going to have that effect.
Well, I think you two have just given me so much information, I don't really know what to do with it, which is awesome. So what I will do, we will publish this video, and on the website there's links to your websites and everything. So if anybody off the back of this really feels like they want to work with either of you to balance their hormones and their blood sugar and everything else, they can come and find you. You both can work online, is that right?
Yeah.
So the way it works with us is that the first meeting is meant to be face-to-face unless there's a very good reason not to. But after that, online is fine. So maybe Claire and I should just say where we're based in case people want to actually see us face-to-face. So I'm in London. Claire, where are you?
And I'm just outside, so I'm in Buckinghamshire. I'm near Tring, in a village near Tring.
Because we certainly have ladies coming into the hub who are all over the world, and it's the beauty of the internet is that we can see people anywhere now, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, ladies.